Hello everyone, this is Karai with Deliberate Wactus, back with another review that's been a bit overdue. Today we're going to be looking at Deamos versus Kaput, a board first to 10. This is out of Tal'Dorei, out in St. Louis here, a Knight's Rest area. So I haven't ever fought Kaput before on the right, but seeing some video of them previously, they look like they have kind of a rather kind of athletic style in some cases. Lots of circle feints and big wraps. And then Deamos on the left is a little bit more controlled, a little more static, so it's going to be a good time to see how these two match up. And they've been so kind as to put the score down here at the bottom for us. So this is kind of a long one, so we're just going to jump right into it. And right off the bat, there's what I'm talking about with Kaput going for that big spin. And Deamos just catching it and throwing that butt chop, which, good response. Kaput kind of reaching there and getting punished for the reach. Deamos again with a nice solid chop. So already we're seeing that these two fight in a way that is not particularly complementary to each other. It's really good for Deamos so far with Kaput throwing these really wide attacks, these really big movements, just because it gives him more time to respond, more time to block. And for somebody who's going to stay pretty tight anyways into his guard, big movements are already at a bit of a loss, or at a bit of a disadvantage. So get some testing sweeps, try and catch Deamos reaching, and that was a good one. So the double up as Deamos throws the low attack, and we're also kind of seeing them, kind of stand in place. Let's go back here. So there's a little bit of testing movement here. Once they get into that range, they're just kind of hanging out and throwing their shots, which I'm guilty of that too. But all right, let's skip ahead here. All right, next fight. If you can move, you should. And it would be beneficial to you. Then you should move. Okay, interesting attempt there. So let's see. So Kaput tries this little lateral step. And throws a cross behind his shield. That's clever. Alright, solid block. Deamos gives a little bit of ground. Blocks again. Crosses and reaches. Block and then shoulder. So one more time at full speed. Cross, block. They trade across. And then the shoulder up. So that was real nice. Just good patience from Deamos. Probably could have had it a little earlier if he'd stepped when he threw his own return cross, but nothing bad there. So far, Deamos is kind of just letting Kaput do a lot of his work for him. And there's the first big feint we see from Deamos. Okay, what was the kill there? So, okay, low hand placement cross, followed up immediately by a high-handed placement cross. So, where Deamos is getting caught is just getting hit in that open little shoulder pocket for his sword side shoulder, and that is simply just because he's dropping his shield enough that so he can get his hand out. Kaput is really fast at these exchanges, playing a little bit further back. That seems to be working out for him a little bit. Is just staying a little further back, making Deamos reach, and instead of throwing himself at Deamos. He's kind of staying in that mid-range where Deamos wants to engage, wants to attack, but is going to have to reach just a little bit, especially with him not using his footwork properly to close. Okay, we've got a little bit lower of a guard. Shield is projected a little bit more forward from Deamos, a little bit more of a bait. Okay, and that's good too, especially if Kaput's been throwing a ton of shield side or sword side shots as well. The board being projected across can definitely help, and it's likely that he's operating with the assumption that his sword side shoulder is the farthest thing, or one of the further things away, giving him a little more time, especially with how much Kaput likes to cross. Alright, so he's engaging down an arm. This is, yeah, and that's kind of just the way to do it, is Kaput closes in, forces the kill. Deamos really needs to be prepped to hard block and potentially, not necessarily retreat, but at least give a little bit of that center ground and fight on the angle a little bit more. And again, here he gets caught trying to dark side. And one of the things I think is catching him here is that his board is already low, and it's actually kind of taking up a little bit of his space. There you go. That was better with trying to give ground, and it looks like he got the simul. Yeah, but part of the thing with Deamos having his board so low to start is that it is getting in his way when he's trying to dark side underneath it, and since Kaput likes to fight high, this is giving him some new avenues to throw at that he wasn't quite opening himself. So it looks like so far, really, they're kind of, a lot of the time their work is being done by their opponent for them. You know, they're killing each other based on the other person's overreaching or mistakes, less than due to their own setups. So there we see the dark side payoff, and actually I'm curious, was the board held a little higher on that one? Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that time Deamos went ahead and actually just brought his hand up, which gave him a little more clearance instead of keeping it low to try and block out and blocking himself. And this ends up happening, of course, because Kaput is almost kind of leading with his elbow, I believe. He's hiking the hand up. Yep. And he pumps his forearm in front of the shield just a little bit, and it gets him caught there. Really nice shot. Let's see that again. Let's see it in slow motion. Alright, so what do we got? So Deamos is heavy on his right foot. Back foot hasn't settled yet. Kaput is moving forward at a diagonal. Stutters the step. Deamos throws his hips back. His front heel is planted and flat. And we've got this really beautiful lean from Kaput. Now, his sword is still turned really far behind, but he gets this awesome rotation. Deamos is far too high. Just not going to catch that at all. Beautiful shot, Kaput. Well done. And I can see why this video is 11 minutes long. There's pretty even back and forth. Nobody's pulled a real lead yet. So I want to see what kind of adjustments they're going to make to each other. So Kaput is starting to learn that he can get success off of forcing the engagement by putting pressure on, and Deamos doesn't necessarily have an answer. And we've seen Deamos in video before against I forget his Aggro, who kind of does a lot similar to Kaput, but with his own, of course, his own flair, his own style. No two people are going to be exactly the same. And where he benefited was starting to take up space and use combos and a little bit of slightly alternated tempo to open up his opponent and get success. Now, Kaput seems a little more likely to just stand and throw than Aggro did when pressed in there, but I still think at this point Deamos is getting run away with, or starting to run out of options here because he keeps letting Kaput dictate the fight and keeps throwing into low quadrants, or really just covered quadrants without being safe. That was, honestly, it looks a little on the lucky side for him, but he maintained the range. Kaput went ahead and overswung and got called out for it. Okay. Just a simple cross-cross. Hit the arm, then hit the head hand. Okay. Yep. Okay, so here's where Deamos is starting to get his roll, at least it looks like. He's steadily taking up space, not overreaching, maintaining a solid guard, and is present enough that when Kaput threatens him, he has a sword out there ready to throw and ready to punish. Something I'd really love to see from both of them is using their footwork more to create feints. I really only have seen it once or twice from Kaput. Not a whole lot other times. And one was that money, and another was just kind of in that last engagement. They were trying to create the fake. Really solid there. So he shifts, Kaput shifts his hip forward and switches here, right? So he takes that step and then rotates his hip back out of the way and gets that clean cross. So that's one of the things you can do as well to manipulate space, is think about which foot is going to be forward and how that affects your hips and your shoulders in relation to your opponent's sword, and what is close enough to them and what is not. Oftentimes, it's really only a matter of an inch or two, oftentimes even less, that is going to determine if you're going to get hit or not. So if you take an aggressive step in, as Kaput did in that last engagement, and then just slightly shift, you don't even need to step necessarily, but you can just shift your hips back or turn in place slightly and create distance where there maybe wasn't space before. Yep. Yep. A nice press and cover, force him to... One of the things as well I keep seeing from Deamos is when he's pressed, his feet kind of collapse together. So, let's go back here frame by frame just a little bit. All right, give me just a moment here. Okay, so he gets pressed on. Tries to throw himself back and out, and ends up throwing his weight back entirely. His hips are all back. His feet keep coming together. Yep. Feet together for a gathering step, and then a hop backwards. So really what seems to be getting Deamos caught a lot of the time is the fact that he's compromising his stance, bringing his feet too close together, getting caught in a position where his torso and his hips, like his shoulders and his hips, are not aligned. He can't move easily. Okay. Not opting for the switch this time. Tried for the downstick. Nope, didn't get it. So Kaput bringing that back up. Okay, looks like a bit of face. Oh, nope, nope. Kaput got it. Okay. And I think really what's benefiting here is that Kaput is attacking more often, creating more threat, and stepping off on a variety of different angles. He's having the benefit of using the entirety of the space around him, where oftentimes Deamos is staying very focused on just what's in front of him. He's not really entering the engagement with the idea of moving laterally too often. He's staying kind of in that center and just kind of hanging out and banging it out. And then, yep. And here's what we're talking about before as well. So, right, where are the feet? Feet are close together. And where, Kaput's feet here? They're nice and wide. He's closing at an angle and throwing across. He's moved kind of to the right, but he's throwing to Deamos's sword side and just creating a lot that Deamos has to respond to. And Deamos has collapsed his feet here together and tries to throw off of that and just doesn't end up managing to get out. So I'd say the big things to take away from here are the fact that early on, Deamos does get a lot of benefit out of staying real tight and staying responsive to Kaput's attacks and punishing him for reaching. However, Kaput started to attack and feint at different ranges while working on moving more laterally and trying to throw a lot of misdirection in things like stepping to the board side, throwing his board over, and crossing to the sword side from behind it. Seems to kind of be his bread and butter. That step feint he did with money towards the 5-minute mark, I believe, was a really, really good use of changed tempo, changed timing, and then using your opponent's habit of trying to punish you by throwing their hips back, trying to get out of space, and then just hit you for reaching against them. Actionable for either of them, what I would say is don't get caught up in that one engagement being the end-all be-all of your fight, of that specific fight. Be willing to, if your plan doesn't work, be willing to step away and, in Deamos' case, work on making sure that you can step away, that your steps are not compromising your guard, that you're not compromising your stance when you move. It's hard to react sometimes when your opponent is very explosive and they like to jump on you. But if rather than trying to stand up straight and get out and bring your feet together, Deamos, if you kind of work on the idea of maybe settling into a comfortable stance, squatting just a little bit with your feet in a nice, shoulder width position, and not having your weight entirely on one foot or the other, you'll start to be able to move during the engagement when there's those pauses or when you have enough mental clarity, in whatever's going on, to step away and to step out or even to re-engage your own attack, because you're not sitting there trying to just throw the highest of high crosses over your opponent's high cross just because that's where the fight has ended up. Kaput, I really like the way that you adjusted and started to bring in those lateral steps, throwing from different ranges. You did a good job of adjusting to the things that Deamos was catching you for early on. It does seem like you tend to over-rely on big fakes and combos in the sense of you commit 100% to them, but if they don't work, you're kind of screwed. And you get caught in bad positions. As well, it really seems like because you are often so ready to cross back, you're getting hit in the right arm a ton. So I would work on maybe finding a sword arm position for you where you feel comfortable throwing back, but you're not losing out on that that trade, because a lot of the time you were losing your arm even when you've got it back kind of at a resting position almost, which should not really be happening without your opponent being a lot closer than Deamos generally was. Additionally, look at the lead exchange playlist that Tato and the folks out of Crystal Groves did, and I'll link that in the description here, and go through and find some leads in there that help you attack each of the 4 major torso quadrants, each of the shoulders, each of the hips. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that you'll really like and that will really benefit you, allowing you to create a lot of new openings and really start to get inside your opponent's head while maintaining good defensive postures with combos and leads that are designed to be successful a large percentage of the time. So anyways, that is all I've got for today with Deamos and Kaput. Thank you so much for watching.